The first time Billionaire CEO Elena Marquez noticed the janitor, she wasn't looking for anything except her missing phone charger. Yet what she overheard, only 4 words, spoken softly into a battered flip phone, hit her like a fist. "I'm coming home, princess." The voice was warm, hopeful, almost trembling. It didn't match the image of the exhausted man in stained overalls pushing a mop across the marble floor of her tech headquarters at nearly midnight. But it was what he said next, after he thought no one could hear, that would change her life forever. Elena was known as a storm in heels, sharp, brilliant, and intimidatingly direct, but something about the janitor tugged at her attention. His name tag read, David. He kept his head down, always polite, always quiet, but there was a heaviness in the way he moved. A story in the slump of his shoulders. A quiet fierceness in his eyes when he thought no one was watching. She wouldn't have thought much more about him, until she overheard 2 managers in the hallway the next morning. "Poor guy," one whispered. "Yeah, his wife died last year. Cancer. He's raising the kid alone." Elena froze mid-step. A single father. Widowed. Working 2 jobs, from what she gathered. Trying to keep afloat. And suddenly those 4 words, "I'm coming home, princess," echoed again with heartbreaking clarity. Something inside her shifted. 2 nights later, while Elena was finishing a video call with overseas partners, she saw David again. He was kneeling beside a trash bin, carefully sorting recyclables by hand. Most janitors just dumped the bags. Why was he doing extra work? Then she noticed the reason: a few ripped textbooks on top of a stack of discarded office materials. He removed them gently, dusting off the covers as though they were gold. His face lit up. He wasn't collecting trash. He was collecting supplies. For someone else. His daughter, Elena realized. Suddenly, she wondered how much he struggled, financially, emotionally, physically. She had grown up with wealth, comfort, and private tutors. The idea of a child relying on thrown-away books twisted her heart. That night, she made a decision she normally would never make. She followed him. Elena kept her distance as David left the building, the city already growing quiet. He didn't take a car or a bus. He walked. Backpack slung over one shoulder, textbooks tucked under his arm, the night wind pushing gently at his clothes. The walk was long, too long for a man who had just finished a 14-hour shift. Just as she was about to regret this impulsive choice, David turned down a narrow street toward an aging apartment complex with peeling paint. She watched him climb the stairs, wincing as he pressed a hand to his lower back. He reached a door at the end of the hall. It burst open before he even touched the handle. A little girl, no more than 7, jumped into his arms. "Daddy!" Her tiny voice echoed down the hallway. David dropped the books, hugging her tightly, burying his face in her hair. The girl tugged him inside. And what Elena saw next, from the crack of the doorway before he finally closed it, broke her heart open. The apartment was tiny, smaller than one of the bathrooms in Elena's penthouse, but every corner was filled with signs of determination. A makeshift study corner made from a broken coffee table. A mattress on the floor neatly covered with blankets. The wall decorated with drawings, crayon images of a smiling man and girl holding hands. On the kitchen counter, a jar labeled, "Savings for College." There couldn't have been more than a few dollars inside. But the girl pointed proudly at it anyway. David grinned. "We'll fill it up together, okay, princess." The girl nodded and ran to unpack the used textbooks he'd brought. Elena felt something squeezed tightly in her chest. This wasn't just survival. This was love. Raw, earnest, powerful love. She stepped back, wiping her eyes, ashamed of intruding on something so pure. She had seen enough. Or so she thought. The next evening, unable to shake what she'd witnessed, Elena stayed late again. She saw David limping slightly as he cleaned the lobby floor. When he reached into a bucket, he winced, sharp, painful, barely contained. "Are you all right?" she asked before she could stop herself. David flinched, surprised she was talking to him. "Yes, ma'am. Just slipped on the stairs at my other job." Other job. She had suspected, but hearing it confirmed hit her harder than she expected. "You shouldn't be working with an injury," she said gently. He gave a tired smile. "I don't really have a choice." Elena swallowed hard. "How old is your daughter?" she asked softly. His eyes lit up just at the mention of her. 7. Smart as a whip. Loves science. Wants to be an engineer. Elena's breath caught. Engineering. Her world. But I'm trying to keep up with bills first, he admitted. Dreams come after reality. Those words, simple, honest, hit her deeper than any business pitch ever had. Dreams come after reality. Not for her, but for him, and for countless others like him. That night, Elena made a second decision. A bold one. A dangerous one. 2 days later, everything reached a boiling point. During routine inspection, the regional supervisor scolded David in front of half the staff for missing a small corner under a table. Elena watched from the mezzanine. David apologized, keeping his voice steady, but she saw the redness in his eyes. Exhaustion, frustration, humiliation. When the supervisor walked away, David stepped into a supply closet. She heard him quietly break down. Just a few muffled sobs. Just enough to release the pain. It was the final straw. Elena was done watching. The next morning, she called David into her office. He looked terrified. Am I being fired? He asked immediately. Her heart cracked at how quickly he assumed the worst. No, she said firmly. You're not in trouble. He exhaled shakily. David, I need to ask you something difficult. Will you trust me? He hesitated, but nodded. Elena pulled out a folder. Inside was a proposal. A new program, the Marquez Foundation Family Advancement Initiative. Free childcare, educational scholarships, housing assistance, career training. For employees like you, she explained, who deserve more than survival. He blinked in confusion. I don't understand. I want to help, she said. Not out of pity, but because you work harder than anyone here. Because your daughter deserves every chance. Because you haven't asked for a single thing despite giving everything. Tears filled his eyes, but he quickly wiped them. I can't accept charity, he whispered. This isn't charity. It's opportunity. She handed him an envelope. Inside were acceptance papers for a company-sponsored housing program, and a scholarship application for his daughter, fully approved. David stared at it, shaking. I didn't even apply. I know, she said gently. I did. Still, David's hesitation didn't fade. I appreciate this more than you know, but why me? Elena took a breath. Because I followed you home. His eyes widened in shock. I shouldn't have, she admitted, voice heavy with sincerity. But what I saw, the way you love your daughter, the way you carry your world on your shoulders, David, it moved me more than anything. She told him everything. The books, the savings jar, the drawings, the limp he tried to hide, the whispered promises to his little girl. By the time she finished, tears were streaming down his face. But she wasn't done. I'm offering you a full-time position in facilities management, she continued. Better pay, benefits, flexible hours. You've more than earned it. David covered his mouth with both hands, overwhelmed. Elena, I don't know what to say. You already said what mattered, she whispered. You're coming home, princess. His breath broke. And finally, he let himself cry openly. Within a month, David and his daughter moved into a safe, clean apartment sponsored by the new foundation. His injury healed with proper medical care. He finished an evening training course and became a supervisor. His daughter received a full scholarship to a STEM summer camp, her first ever. And Elena, she visited sometimes, quietly, humbly. Not as a CEO. As someone who had been inspired by an ordinary man with extraordinary love. On the day of the foundation's launch ceremony, David stood at the podium, hands trembling. His daughter stood beside him, wearing a little dress decorated with stars. I used to think, he began softly, that life was just about surviving. Working until you drop, hoping your kids end up better off. He paused, voice shaking. But someone saw me, truly saw me. And sometimes that's all a person needs, one moment where they aren't invisible. He turned toward Elena, eyes full of gratitude. So if you're watching this and you're struggling, don't give up. Someone out there sees you. And your dreams matter. His daughter slipped her hand into his. And sometimes, he added, smiling, dreams don't have to come after reality. Sometimes they can grow together. The crowd rose in a standing ovation. Elena wiped her eyes. And for the first time since inheriting her fortune, she felt not powerful, but purposeful.